Listen closely, my dear, because today I'm going to tell you a story that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. A story about a family I built with my own hands, a love I thought was unbreakable, and the moment everything fell apart when they needed me most. My name is Margaret. I'm 73 years old now, but this story takes me back to 5 years ago when my whole world changed because of a single moment of blame. Let me take you back to the beginning. To understand how I lost everything, you need to understand what I had. And what I had was a son who I raised alone from the moment he was born. My husband, David, left us when my son Thomas was just 3 years old. He didn't come back for money or to see his child. He just disappeared one day, and I never heard from him again. I was 28 years old, newly abandoned, with a small child and nothing but my determination to survive. I worked 3 jobs for the first 10 years of Thomas's life. I cleaned houses until my hands bled. I worked night shifts at a hospital, changing bedpans and helping elderly patients, falling asleep standing up. I did anything I could to keep a roof over our heads and food on our table. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I was doing enough, if my son would forgive me someday for not being able to give him more. But Thomas understood. Children have a way of knowing when their parent is giving everything they have. He never complained. He studied hard. He made friends. He became the kind of son every mother dreams of. And when he graduated from college, I felt like I had finally achieved something. Like all those sleepless nights, all those sacrifices had been worth it. When Thomas got married, I felt complete. I thought my job was done. I had raised a good man. He had found a good woman. Life was finally going to be easier. Her name was Anna. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Tall, blonde, with a smile that seemed warm at first. She came from money. Not obscene amounts, but enough that she had never had to work for anything. She had been given everything by her parents. Nice clothes, nice education, nice opportunities, all handed to her on a silver platter. Thomas was so in love with her. I could see it in his eyes every time he looked at her. And I was happy for him. I really was. I thought Anna would be good for him. I thought she would be the partner he deserved. I was wrong. So terribly, tragically wrong. The first few months after they married were wonderful. Anna was sweet to me. She called me Mom. She asked for my recipes. She wanted me to teach her how to cook the dishes my son loved. I felt like I had gained a daughter. I felt like my family was finally complete. But slowly, things began to change. It started with small comments, innocent things that seemed harmless at first, but accumulated over time like poison in the water supply. Margaret, those dresses you wear are so old-fashioned. Don't you want to update your style? Anna would say with that smile of hers that didn't quite reach her eyes. Margaret, I noticed the house needs some work. David didn't really leave you in great financial shape, did he? That must be why Thomas's childhood was so modest. Margaret, I'm so grateful Thomas had someone to raise him, but you must understand that I can teach him about the finer things in life. I grew up with culture and sophistication. Each comment was a small cut, nothing that would make me bleed alone, but together they formed a pattern, a deliberate, calculated pattern of making me feel less than, making me feel like I wasn't good enough, making me feel like my sacrifices, my love, my decades of devotion to my son were somehow inadequate. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was being too sensitive, that Anna was just different from me, that her way wasn't better or worse, just different. I told myself that as long as Thomas was happy, it didn't matter what his wife thought of me. But it mattered. It mattered more than I wanted to admit. Thomas didn't see it, or maybe he did and chose not to see it. When Anna made these comments, he would change the subject or laugh it off. He never defended me. He never told his wife that my sacrifices were enough, that my love was enough, that I was enough. Looking back now, I think that's when I first felt the cold. That first little shiver of realization that I was about to lose him. Not physically, he still visited. But emotionally, he was already starting to drift away from me and toward Anna's worldview. But then my grandchildren were born. First came Sarah, beautiful with her father's brown eyes and her mother's blonde hair. And then, 2 years later, came Michael, the spitting image of Thomas at that age. When I held Sarah for the first time, I forgot about Anna. I forgot about the hurt. All I could feel was love, pure, overwhelming, all-consuming love for this tiny human who had come from my son. I became the grandmother that every grandchild deserves. I babysat while Thomas and Anna went out on dates. I taught Sarah to bake cookies. I read Michael stories every night he spent at my house. I was present. I was loving. I was everything my own mother was to me, and everything I couldn't always be to my son when he was young because I was working 3 jobs just to keep us alive. Those years with Sarah and Michael saved me. They reminded me that love is what matters. That the things Anna said about my clothes or my finances or my simple life didn't actually mean anything. What mattered was that my grandchildren loved me, that they ran to me when I picked them up from school, that they told me their secrets and asked me for advice, that they hugged me tight and said, "Grandma, I love you so much." Sarah was 9 years old and Michael was 7 when it happened, when everything changed, when the moment came that would destroy everything I had worked so hard to build. It was a Saturday in March. Spring was just beginning, and I was babysitting Sarah and Michael while Thomas and Anna went to some charity event, the kind of fancy thing Anna loved to attend to show off her wealth and social status. I had picked the children up from school on Friday. They were staying at my house for the weekend, something Anna had started to discourage more and more. She wanted the children to be with culturally refined people, she said. She wanted them to learn the ways of high society. She didn't think my simple house was the right environment for them anymore. But that weekend, they were with me, and I was so happy. We baked together, Sarah helped me make brownies, her favorite, and Michael helped me make lasagna, which was his favorite. We watched movies together, we played board games, we talked about school and friends and dreams. I tucked them both into the guest bed, and I lay between them, and I listened to their breathing as they fell asleep, and I felt like I was the luckiest woman in the world. Saturday morning, Sarah wanted to go to the park. The weather was beautiful, warm and sunny, with just a hint of that spring freshness in the air. I said yes immediately. We packed a picnic lunch, I made sandwiches and cut up fruit and packed some juice boxes. Michael was so excited that he could barely contain himself. The park was busy that day. There were other families, other children playing. I set up our picnic blanket under a big oak tree. Sarah and Michael ran off to play while I sat and watched them. Just a grandmother enjoying a beautiful day with her grandchildren. I saw what happened next, but I didn't understand it in the moment. There was a bicycle. I don't know where it came from or who it belonged to, but a teenage boy came speeding down the path on this bicycle, going so fast. He wasn't watching where he was going. He was showing off for his friends, doing tricks, not paying attention to anything around him. Michael was running across the path. I don't know why. Maybe he saw something. Maybe he was chasing Sarah. I was looking away for just 1 second. I remember now. I was looking at another grandmother, smiling at her, thinking about how this was supposed to be a simple, happy afternoon. When I looked back, the bicycle was crashing into Michael. The teenage boy had swerved to try to avoid him, but it was too late. The bicycle hit my grandson. Michael flew through the air. He crashed onto the pavement. I don't remember running to him. I just remember being there, holding him, seeing blood on his face, hearing him cry out in pain. I remember screaming for help. I remember holding him and thinking, this is my fault. This is my fault. This is my fault. An ambulance came. Michael had broken his arm and had a bad cut on his face. The doctor at the hospital said he was lucky. Another inch and the bicycle wheel would have hit his head. He could have been killed. My grandson could have been killed on my watch. When Thomas and Anna arrived at the hospital, Anna's face was a mask of fury. She didn't run to her son to check on him. She didn't hug him or ask the doctor what his injuries were. She looked at me. And in that look was everything. Every criticism she had ever made. Every subtle dig about my inadequacy. It all came pouring out in one moment of pure maternal rage, not at the teenage boy who was speeding recklessly, but at me. "How could you?" she screamed. "How could you be so irresponsible? Michael could have been killed." "It was an accident," I tried to explain. "There was a teenage boy on a bicycle." "You were supposed to be watching them," she shrieked. "You're too old, Margaret. You're too slow. You can't keep up with 2 children anymore. You're getting senile." Thomas stood there and he didn't say anything. He didn't defend me. He didn't remind his wife that I had been watching the children and that the accident was not my fault. He just looked at the ground. I felt something break inside me in that moment, something fundamental. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." And Anna's face twisted. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't bring Michael back if he had been killed. You're too old, Margaret. Too old and too foolish to be responsible for our children. After that day, things were never the same. Anna convinced Thomas that I was too old to babysit. She said I was a liability. She said I was irresponsible. And Thomas, who had been slowly pulled into her world for years, agreed. The visits became less frequent. First, they were reduced from weekends to 1 day a week, then to twice a month, then to special occasions only. Sarah and Michael missed me. I could see it in their faces when I saw them. They would ask when they could come stay at my house again, but Anna would say no. Anna would say I was tired. Anna would say I had things to do. Thomas would nod along with whatever his wife said. My calls were not returned. My invitations to dinner were declined. I became invisible to the family I had built, to the son I had sacrificed everything for, to the grandchildren I loved more than I loved myself. I fell into a depression. For months, I didn't leave my house. I didn't call anyone. I didn't see friends. I just sat in the darkness and thought about how I had failed. How at the most important moment, I had let my grandson get hurt. How I deserved this punishment. I even considered ending my life. I'm not ashamed to say it. I put pills on the table. I stared at them for an hour. And then I thought about Sarah and Michael. And I thought about how much more they would hurt if I disappeared. So I put the pills away. Years passed. 3 years of being pushed out, of being rejected, of being blamed for something that wasn't my fault. I got older. I had to sell my house because I couldn't afford the mortgage on my pension anymore. I moved to a small apartment. I volunteered at a local charity, helping seniors like myself. I found purpose in service, in helping others who had also been abandoned. I learned to accept that I would probably never see my grandchildren grow up, that my son had chosen his wife over his mother, that the love I had given my whole life was not enough to earn his loyalty. I made peace with it. Not really. You never truly make peace with losing your family. But I stopped fighting it. I stopped calling. I stopped sending birthday cards. I stopped hoping. I became one of those grandmothers you see in the park, sitting alone on a bench, watching other people's grandchildren play, remembering what it felt like to have that. But then came the day that changed everything again. It was a Tuesday. I was at my apartment, making myself tea, when there was a knock on my door. It was late afternoon, and I rarely got visitors. I almost didn't open it, but I did. It was Michael, my grandson, now 10 years old, taller than I remembered, with his father's eyes but something sadder in them, something older. "Hi, Grandma," he said quietly. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. For a moment, I thought I was having a heart attack. My chest was so tight, and my breath was so shallow, and my heart was pounding so hard that I thought it might break right through my ribs. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside, and he came into my small apartment. He looked around like he was seeing something beautiful, even though my apartment is nothing fancy. Just a small living room and a bedroom and a kitchen. But I saw him taking it in, and I realized that Anna had probably told him I lived in squalor, that I had failed in every way. "How did you get here?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, like someone else was speaking. "I took the bus," he said. "I told Mom I was at a friend's house. I told Dad I was at soccer practice." He sat down on my sofa, and I sat next to him. I wanted to touch him, to make sure he was real, but I was afraid. Afraid he would disappear. Afraid I would wake up and realize this was a dream. "Michael, what's wrong?" I asked. "Are you okay?" He looked at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. My tough, brave grandson was crying. "I need to tell you something, Grandma," he said. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Michael took a deep breath. His hands were shaking. "That day at the park," he began, "when I got hit by the bicycle, I remember it, Grandma. I remember what really happened." My heart stopped. "You were watching us. You were watching the whole time. You were right there. And when that boy came speeding toward me, you tried to stop it. I remember. You came running and you yelled for me to get out of the way. But it was too late. The bicycle hit me." "Michael." "Let me finish," he said, and there was something so adult in his voice, so serious, that I did. "After the accident, Mom told me that it was your fault. She said you weren't watching. She said you were too old and too slow. She said you let me get hurt because you weren't paying attention. And I believed her. I was 7 years old, and I was scared, and I was in pain, and my mom told me it was your fault." He paused, and I saw him gathering courage. "But I remember, Grandma. I remember the truth. You were there. You were always there. And after Mom kept saying it was your fault, I started to doubt my own memory. I thought maybe I was remembering it wrong. Maybe she was right. Maybe you really were too old. Maybe you really did fail." "Oh, Michael," I whispered. 2 months ago, I had a school project. We were studying memory and psychology, and I became obsessed with this idea that maybe I was wrong, maybe Mom was wrong. So I asked Dad if he remembered what happened at the park. What did he say? He said that he wasn't there. He said he didn't see it happen. But then I told him what I remembered, about you coming running, about you yelling for me to get away, and he got very quiet. And he said, "Michael, are you sure about that?" And I said yes. And then he looked really sad, and he said, "I think your mother has been blaming Grandma for something that wasn't her fault." I felt like I couldn't breathe. He told me I had to decide if I wanted to find out the truth, and I decided I did. So I came here, Grandma, because I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for believing her. I'm sorry for letting you be punished for something that wasn't her fault. And I needed to tell you that I remember now. I really remember. And you didn't fail me. You were brave, and you were watching, and you tried to save me. The tears were flowing down my face now. I couldn't stop them. "Michael," I said, and I pulled him into my arms. "Oh, Michael, it's not your fault. You were a child. You didn't know. It's not your fault." And he cried into my chest the way he had when he was small, and I held him, and I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as broken as I thought I was. Michael told his father everything, and his father told him that he needed to tell his mother and his sister. 2 weeks later, I received a phone call. It was Thomas, the first time he had called me in 3 years. "Mom," he said, and his voice was breaking. "I need to see you. We all need to see you. Can you come to the house on Saturday?" I said yes, even though I was terrified. Saturday came, and I drove to the house that used to be mine, the house where I had imagined my family growing up, only to have the door slowly closed in my face. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I found the courage to go inside. Thomas opened the door. He looked 10 years older than when I had last seen him. His hair was gray, his face was lined, and his eyes were sad. "Mom," he said, and he pulled me into my arms and held me, and I felt him shaking against me. "I'm sorry," he said, over and over. "I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have defended you." I should have known better. Anna was in the living room. She didn't look at me at first. She sat on the sofa with her arms wrapped around herself, like she was holding herself together. Sarah was there too, now 12 years old, nearly a teenager. She looked confused. "Grandma?" she said tentatively. "Is that really you?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "It's me." And she ran to me and hugged me so tight that I could barely breathe. Michael stood next to his mother, and he didn't say anything. He just watched. "We need to talk," Thomas said. For the next hour, the truth came out. Michael explained what he remembered. Thomas admitted that he had known, deep down, that I wasn't at fault, but he had been afraid to stand up to his wife. He had been weak. He had chosen peace in his marriage over justice for his mother. Anna listened, and slowly something broke in her expression. She looked at Michael, really looked at him, for the first time since the accident. "I did this," she said, and her voice was small. "I was so angry that he was hurt, and I needed someone to blame. And I blamed you, Margaret, because I was afraid. I was afraid of my own anger. I was afraid of what I might do if I didn't direct it at someone." "I know," I said, and I did know. I understood that Anna had been broken too, in her own way. That fear had made her cruel. "I'm sorry," she said, and she looked at me with eyes that were finally honest. "I'm so sorry. For 3 years of lies, for taking your grandchildren from you, for letting you believe that you had failed. I'm sorry." I nodded. I couldn't bring myself to say, "I forgive you" yet, but I also couldn't bring myself to say, "I will never forgive you." I just acknowledged her apology. The months after that family meeting were about slowly rebuilding what had been broken. Anna sought help. She saw a therapist and worked through her anger. She started to understand where her cruel behavior had come from her own insecurities, her own fears of not being enough. Thomas spent time with me, real time. We talked about his childhood, about the sacrifices I had made, about the ways he had let me down. We cried together. We apologized to each other for things we had done and things we had failed to do. Sarah and Michael came back into my life, slowly at first, then more regularly. They slept at my apartment on weekends. We baked together again. We played games. We talked, and I got to know them in a way that I had thought I would never know anyone again. Sarah was dealing with her own feelings about what had happened. She had also believed that I was at fault. She had also been angry at me for hurting her brother. But now she understood the truth, and that understanding freed her. She apologized to me too. And I told her, "You were just a child. You didn't know any better. There's nothing to forgive." Michael and I had the strongest bond after that. He had been brave enough to seek the truth. He had been brave enough to tell his family what he remembered. And that bravery had brought us all back together. I told him that I saw his strength and that it had saved more than just me. It had saved the whole family. Anna and I came to a tentative peace, not a deep friendship, but a mutual understanding. She had hurt me terribly, and I had forgiven her, Not quickly or easily, but genuinely. And I think that meant something to her. Today, I'm 78 years old. I still live in my small apartment, but now my grandchildren visit regularly. Sarah is 17 and Michael is 15. They are becoming wonderful young people. Sarah wants to be a lawyer, to fight for justice, she says. Michael wants to be a counselor, to help families heal from conflict, he says. I'm proud of them. I'm so proud. Thomas and Anna are still married, but they are different people than they were 5 years ago. They have worked through their pain and their fears. They have built something stronger than what they had before, not based on pretense or appearances, but on truth and understanding. I've had a lot of time to reflect on what happened, and you know what I've learned? I learned that blame is a dangerous thing. It's easier to blame someone else for our pain than to face the truth. Anna blamed me because she couldn't bear the guilt of her own fears and failures as a mother. And in blaming her, she nearly destroyed our family. I also learned that love is not about perfection. I'm not a perfect grandmother. I made mistakes that day in the park. I looked away at the wrong moment. I didn't anticipate the danger quickly enough. But that doesn't mean I failed as a grandmother. It means I'm human. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I have not forgotten the 3 years that I lost with my grandchildren. I have not forgotten the pain of being blamed for something I didn't do. I have not forgotten the moment when I thought I had lost my family forever. But I have forgiven, and that forgiveness has allowed me to move forward, to rebuild, to find joy in my life again. Most importantly, I learned that the truth always comes out. It might take time. It might take a brave 10-year-old boy to be the one who speaks it. But the truth does come out, and when it does, it has the power to heal even the most broken families. I'm sitting in my small apartment now, and I can hear the rain outside. It's a sound I've always loved, the pattering of rain on the windows, like the world is tapping gently, reminding me that I'm still alive, still here, still able to feel and love and forgive. I have a photograph on my shelf. It's from last month. Sarah and Michael and I are at the park, the same park where the accident happened all those years ago. We're smiling, really smiling, not the forced smiles of people pretending everything is okay. We're genuinely happy. Michael has his arm around me, and Sarah is leaning against my shoulder, and I'm looking at the camera with tears in my eyes. But they're good tears, the kind that come from knowing that you've been through the fire and came out the other side, still able to love. That's what I want to leave you with today, my dear. That's the message I want you to take with you. Life is unpredictable. Tragedy can strike when you least expect it. Families can be torn apart by misunderstanding and blame. Love can be questioned. Trust can be broken. But none of that is permanent. None of that is irreversible. If you are being blamed for something you didn't do, have faith that the truth will come out. If you have blamed someone unfairly, have the courage to admit it and ask for forgiveness. If you have been estranged from family, never lose hope that you might be reunited. If you have forgiven, know that your forgiveness has the power to heal generations. I am 78 years old. I have lived through a lot of pain. I have made mistakes. I have been wronged. I have wronged others. But through it all, I have learned that love is stronger than blame, that truth is stronger than lies, that forgiveness is the hardest love, but the one that keeps a family alive. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it has touched your heart. I hope it has reminded you that you are not alone in your suffering and that there is always hope. May you find the strength to forgive. May you find the courage to speak the truth. And may you find your way back to the people you love, no matter how far you have been separated from them.